we all work differently. Like again, for me, like the thing that I really got fixated on was like all of the different aesthetics that they've integrated into
Mhm.
Magic, and like as you'll see from some of the art card demonstrations we have tonight, literally over the past 20 years of different art design from pop culture and games and stuff, and it's like I do like fixating on picking on those things where it's like I like their use of this Baroque artistry.
Right.
I think like like Innistrad, a lot of like say the plate armor designs and some of the locations. I might like try and literally fishing and cherry picking certain things where it's like I think I can use that. I really like
Mhm.
that.
I mean,
That yeah.
real quick, I see, Chat Gang's been popping off here for a little bit. Hey, Tanlin, how's it going, my friend? Yes, I was looking at your comment there on Twitter. I was trying to check to see if I had notified everyone that we went live. Obviously did. We saw that great It's a Jersey Thing GIF popping off on my Twitter. Rocco, your boy, showing up. SJ Arcade in the house, one of the oil barons. Um, um, match game. What up? What up? Tonight we're going to be talking about Martin's sort of hobby journey, this 18-month project with sort of like the army of his dreams. And I hope that somewhere whilst discussing this, talking about his inspiration, his technique, and like really the sort of narrative of the hobby and his particular journey. And I hope by investigating that we might, you know, help other people find some inspiration, like pull
This
to
this is a long form live art essay, everybody.
right. So we're doing an art essay. Um, yeah. So it has been an age. I think that also answers yours. How's it going, Hades? Plus
Thank you, SJ
parties.
Arcade, for a bunch of the tier one subs.
Yeah, popping off.
I
Gifted.
have it open on my phone so I can look at the comments.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've read Camus? Camus, yeah. Camus don't fuck around. Albert Camus is solid. Um, let's see. Oh no, I
You
forgot.
mean you mean Camus?
And I am, of course, the magical Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. This is episode 101 of AOS RantCast. We had a little interlude for Decantcast a couple weeks ago. I think I took a week off, and I'm back. I needed that rantathon break in there,
Hmm.
to just reset, reevaluate. And I'll get back to weekly content for everybody here going forward. I think I actually painted last week. I did like a paint stream on a Thursday, which is weird for me. Of course, my guest tonight, the artist formerly known as Good Painter Stormcast Man, Martin Orlando. How's it going, my friend?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on. It was a wonderful privilege to work on my stuff and get such great feedback for it. I didn't expect the longer Twitter posts. Like I had been drafting it up and like trying to find the right words for everything, and it's so hard. But I really appreciate. I'm glad that you took such an interest in it as well. Yeah, and I'm just happy to be here and hopefully maybe like educate, like not educate, but like uh, provide insight which may be inspirational in its own right to others.
Right. Well, I mean, just real quick, yeah, Decantcast is its own series. It is
Yeah.
beside Rantcast, right? It's Rantcast presents. No, so for just some background, I like to treat every episode like it could be somebody's first episode, which means
Oh
explainer
yes,
chat.
if on the very slim chance that people from my extended family listen to this,
Right.
um, yeah, they may not know. They just know that I paint miniatures and stuff like that. But for anyone, anyway, continue on.
Right.
Apologize.
So what happened? I mean, really, where I think this the beginning for me, my intersection with this, and why I think it's cool to do this show is I started what was called the Alpha Sode, like sort of mini series where.
Yeah.
My passion for Ossiarch Bone Reapers. I'm rocking my Bone Reapers shirt right now, by the way. Um, like my passion for Ossiarch Bone Reapers and really my ability to recognize the passion in other people is something that, quite frankly, helps me as a human being. Like,
Yeah.
as a nerd, especially, I think that the instinct is to like pull away from other people becoming interested in your nerd stuff. I mean, there's like a
Yeah.
sort of shared cultural experience of ostracization when it comes to being a nerd. Like you have a demographic of people predominantly for the bulk of their lives. I'm a 30 something year old nerd wasn't popular or pop culture like it is now for the majority of my life. It
Hmm.
came, it ebbed and flowed in waves. There was a period in time where Star Wars was actually not considered nerdy back, like when it first came out. It was a technological wonder, and it was in the zeitgeist. But
Yeah.
nerdery moves in waves, comes in popularity. But for the bulk of most people's lives, they have this almost visceral reaction of either having to feel ashamed that they were nerds, hide that they were nerds, or whatever it was, or be bullied because they were nerds. And what it did is it caused this sort of very close knit group, but also insular group, and just this sort of
Yeah.
group mentality that develops in nerdy. And we see this constantly, like the elite nerdist trope or stereotype, the Big Bang Theory exclusionary nerd, like nobody gets our stuff and they don't understand it, and then you mock and laugh at them because they don't understand our cool thing. Like that is that's a terrible TV show, but that type of nerdery is real. And
Yeah.
I
Uh,
did it. Oh, go. You can go ahead if you
I
want.
was about to say no. This would be a good opportunity for my mother to step in, though she will not step in front of a microphone for this stuff. As I've talked about, for those who attended ACO, my mother is the what is it, the nerd matriarch? Like she used to run conventions that make Warhammer look like a flea, back since like the early '80s.
Yeah, well,
So yeah,
what I
that
call the old
perspective.
guard. What I call the old
Yes.
guard, like the
Yeah.
sort of like original guard of nerd, which is like the old school trekkers, basically. Like that's
Yes.
for.
Yes.
I struggle
When.
to think of a nerd as we know it
Hmm.
fandom
Yeah.
like that reaches back further than they were the original ones doing the
Oh yeah.
VHS swaps,
Uh,
right? Like they
and
had little
also,
sci-fi.
Worldcon
Go
would
ahead.
have, no, Worldcon would have, the guest of honor would be Robert Heinlein or Isaac
Yeah,
Asimov, and they would give a keynote
yeah,
speech.
yeah.
It does not get more OG than that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
old guard. Is like that old sci-fi nerd,
Yeah.
like the Trekkers, the
Yeah.
Isaac Asimov
Mhm.
fans, like all that stuff. PKD, like that old guard, the Jack Vance fandoms, like where they would had
Sure.
college periodicals, and like so the college campus would public like this nerd monthly, and that was how you stayed connected to these nerd verses. And again, that's what I call them, the old guard. That was my uncle's
Sure.
generation, the sort of,
Yes.
you know I'm sort of descendant, that second gen, what I think is the contemporary nerd, what is come on to define the predominant definition. And now we have sort of a transitional period into what I think is like the third era of nerddom, which is the popular nerd. You
Yeah.
know, listen to my TED talk later on my nerd thesis. Um, no, but this
It
sort
is
of,
your show, dude.
yeah, this sort of like reactionary like instinct that nerds developed, and I think it was certainly as the internet sort of shifted from being exclusively a nerd thing. You're talking like this sort of, to put it as, I guess, as identifiable as I think I can make it. The difference between Ultima Online and World of Warcraft. That's sort of like
Yeah.
when it was Ultima Online, the internet was basically just a hellscape of nerds, and then everybody else got online too, and like everything changed, and that reactionary sort of like ability to curl within inside yourself. And again, I was
I
this
am
type of.
proud. I
Go
am
ahead.
proud to understand that analogy, despite having never played either game.
Yeah. See, I forget you're younger than me sometimes. Like you're
Yeah.
very.
I also led a very targeted slash sheltered existence in terms of my nerding. Like I went from Game Boy games to Halo while picking up Warhammer.
Yeah, yeah,
And in college, I was like, do I want to stick with video games and drawing, or do I want to lean more into Warhammer? And Warhammer clearly won out. I have not played a game of online Halo, I want to say since 2013, 2014.
yeah.
And I don't have a drawing tablet anymore. I have not for a long time. Uh, so here we are. And this is kind of the culmination of that, if we want to use this to kind of lead into the project we're talking about
Well,
tonight.
well, I mean, what I was the to put a bow on the point I'm
Yeah.
trying to make is that I grew up as I hid my nerd until I was adequately comfortable with myself, and then I became the sort of reactionary nerd that like you're not. You got to prove to me you're worthy to be a nerd. The most vicious version of this isn't a particular brand I bought into, but you see it a lot against like minorities, people of color, women, that sort of thing. Like you see that sort of exclusionary nerd type really focuses in on that. But even broadly, nerds were primed to be that way. And I recognized, like, I always had a pretty diverse group of friends, so I never quite went that route. But I did do the like, if you told me you were a Wolverine fan, what's his real name? You know, like I've been collecting Wolverine comics since this time, and I know he's named James Howlett and blah. You're not enough of a nerd yet. You know, like that kind of crap. You know, I wrote
Sure.
like what saved me in the end was not recognizing like that people had the specific nerddom I had, but recognizing the passion that I would see that like somebody would like start talking to me about something that's like nerd, right? And I wouldn't understand. Like I'm like I don't like I wear many hats of nerdery, but I'm like I don't know what this Godzilla film, right? One of my friends, huge like Godzilla fan.
Yeah.
Um,
Gojira. Yeah, there's like I think there's G Fest in Chicago
yeah, like
that a friend of the family goes to.
yeah, and he'd be talking to me, and I'm just like, my eyes are glossing over. Like, I have a point of reference from like anime, and I have a point of reference from like general like enjoyment of like Japanese culture, and like I know Kurosawa and like film, but like this whole other world with like the costume monsters and like it's out of my wheelhouse. But I'd see this passion, like, and I'm like that way this person's talking right now about that thing is the exact same way I talk about Warhammer, is the exact same way I talk about, Silent Hill, the exact same way I talk about the stuff I love. And so I stopped
Yeah.
focusing on the specifics of nerdery, and I started focusing on the love, because for me
Yeah,
that's what a nerd.
we find mutual friendship in our individual adorations or passions
Right,
about what we care about.
right, right.
Yeah.
The universal language became the passion, not the nerdery. It was like I don't know what your what your thing is, but like I get it
Unbelievable!
because I feel that passion. And so jumping into Age of Sigmar, you know, I like Ossiarch. Everyone should have their Ossiarch Bone Reaper. First of all, everybody should get their army that they love. If you haven't found your like forever home yet, please stick around. Because it's a great community and stuff. But like I know that I have nerd privilege. I got my favorite army in the world. I too hope everyone gets to experience this. But I got my like nerd army. It was coming out. I was like every teaser, every trailer, every leak of a model of a rule. This wasn't the normal amount of hype. This was something else. Like I needed this, and not just because of like the
Oh
performative
yes.
nerd. Like it was
Yeah.
deep. It was
You
visceral.
you you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I do remember watching this or listening to the
I
shows
made
when
a podcast because of Ossiarch Bone Reapers, right?
yeah.
And then I would see this throughout. Like I started because I saw I'd been aware of nerdery and the passion, and then I experienced the passion like that myself. I recognized it in other people as it was happening, and then LRL basically kind of came out, and
Yeah.
I saw LRL was a very from the jump divisive army. It was
For sure.
immediately, and
And it was
that's
compounded by the fact that most of the news was starting to be rolled out as we were getting used to pandemic living,
yeah,
and that sort of like I would say further polarized the rhetoric on it. And I mean, it is what it is. Uh, we have talked about in your previous episode segments, including one segment called "Are Elves Weird Enough?" in
yeah,
which I think it became clear that when I was speaking specifically on the subjects, notions of art design, specific breaking down decisions, choices, aesthetics into being like, I think people are having a hard time reconciling this because of, and then it can't when you had to step away, you generally had to step. Yeah,
I own this because of you. art because of you
There we go.
specifically. When
Yeah.
we were talking about this cover, you busted out like a freaking PowerPoint, like Vince Venturella
Oh yeah.
PowerPoint. Like
Yeah.
the cover art. I on one hand I'm not attached to LRL,
Sure.
but the art.
It's
Yeah, go ahead.
right. No, it's like that's one of the points behind Warhammer or fandoms like Warhammer is your faction fandom. Like we're going to create visually distinct faction.
The real best cover
There
is
you
right
go.
here. Like this is the
Absolutely.
actual best one.
Absolutely. And it's a superb art. It's
Oh,
really
excellent.
like I wish that had a red border and like that would fit right up there in a Games Workshop from 10, 15 years ago, dude. It's truly evocative of the faction's flavor. It's gonna fall down. Oh, oh no. It fell a
It
few inches. Yeah.
we're
Oh
good.
no.
We're good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Anyway, and so you're going to have people like you want as a person as say a business that wants to build these faction fandoms. Like, well, you want something visually distinct for every type of person. It almost is. It's kind of like what Overwatch does, from like a character design perspective, or like League, where instead, like every character is their own superhero. They're going to have their own aesthetic. They're going to make sure we want to make sure that they all look distinct from one another. And
Yeah.
so, like Ossiarch Bone Reapers, none of their new miniatures can look like Lumineth Realm Lords. They can't look like Stormcast. We want to make sure that all Ossiarch Bone Reaper stuff looks as Ossiarch Bone Reapers as Ossiarch Bone Reapers can be, which means that lobstered obsidian.
Bound in hell.
Yeah, yes, the bone. The it's I would say the closest and by closest I like barely associate just in terms of general shapes and texture makeup is like the Tyranids, where you have like these sculpted bone shapes rather than using pieces of like scavenged stuff. Like you know what a skeleton warrior looks like. But an Ossiarch Bone Reaper is not a skeleton warrior,
Yeah,
even if they're made of the same
yeah,
stuff.
you see them in the
Yeah.
dark and they're complete. Even like if you're just getting rough shapes, you know that these are two distinctly different things, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and the same thing. It is no different with what Games Workshop wanted to do with Lumineth Realm Lords. And I was very happy when they came out. Like, do we want to just segue into like the whole thing, or I didn't know what you want.
Well, I
Okay.
just wanted to establish the
Yeah.
Alphasode, where that
Okay.
came from, and
Yeah.
that for me it was about recognizing like
Okay.
recognizing like sort of resonant frequencies of nerdery.
Yeah.
Like
So for
and I
yeah,
saw that with you, I saw that with Bryce. I saw like a lot of these LRL
Tyler
fans.
Emerson, who never actually managed to get on an Alphasode, I believe.
You know, he's hard to get on a show. He really is. Like I've
Yes.
tried to like
Yes.
and he's been doing like the Warhammer Weekly like every week and I'm just like what the hell, man?
Well, he's ready to
Like,
he's ready to be done. So at some point after he recovers and Tom resume assumes the king and queen throne. It's the two thrones, like one slightly, or I guess in this case, one's covered in Zinch stuff and paintbrushes. The other one's covered in crumpled army lists and Nurgle stuff. Um, that's what you make the two thrones out of. When
yeah.
Tyler steps down and give him a little bit time to recover, I'm sure he'll be more
Yeah, no.
conducive to being on other shows and stuff.
No, last night's
Um,
episode was of Warhammer Weekly that was
yes, I
awesome.
listened
Just
to it at work. It was very nice.
hanging out with
Yeah.
Tyler and
Mhm.
he'll never admit to it, but he's got to be one of the smartest, just one of the absolute
Oh,
smartest people
absolutely,
in Warhammer. Just the way he
absolutely.
sees the game, the way he draws connections, not just between the game and like bigger picture, broader stroke stuff. Like, um, he's like a wizard. I think I'm a pretty
Okay.
smart guy, and so when you think you're a pretty smart guy and you're in the presence of someone else, you're just like, wow, I'm
Oh
not on
yeah,
this level. You know, like
I totally understand that. Um,
so.
but no, yeah, yeah. But for me, with the elves, it's like I kind of had that thing where maybe it was probably with Lord of the Rings, where it was like, of course, the very first scene in all of Lord of the Rings are the elves in the golden armor of the ever time spring, marching into Mordor with spear phalanxes and just saying, "Hey, get the fuck out, you orcs." And behind them, of course, is Hugo Weaving, and his boss, the High King of the Star Children, with like this banner of like all crazy stuff and this magic spear. And then they show us later on in the movie where it's like their home, Rivendell, just looks incredible. And probably me as like a 7 or 8 year old.
Yeah.
No, wait, if it came out, the first one came out in 2001. It would have been 9. It was just like resonated with me,
I was in the
and I
tail end
really
of my
liked
high
it.
school career.
Yeah, yeah. I just turned 28 last month.
Real
So
quick, Caleb Kane
yeah.
popping in saying hi at chat gang. It's me, your boy, back at it with the popping in to say hi before returning to work. Have a great night at work, my friend. Thanks for stopping in.
And happy birthday, Dan Caravan, who redeemed 1,000 RDP.
Do you know why he redeemed 1,000 RDP?
Because Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with.
Boom. He knows.
I do listen to your shows.
Yeah, so you're talking LTR.
Yeah.
You gravitated towards
Mhm.
the elves. For me, it was the Black Riders, the ring wraiths, man.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
I remember the
For
book.
most people, it was the dwarves.
Really? You think so? Like most people loved
Around here. Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
I
must be a Jersey thing
I
or
see
something.
nothing. Yes, it's beards and beer. And axes, I guess. What's not to like for, I guess, dwellers of the Pine Barrens? I don't know, but it's a thing. But yeah, it's for me, like it was the elves and stuff, and that kind of evolved over time. Like I wouldn't find Warhammer. There was always a Games Workshop in the mall, like by me. It was it's in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and we went in because of Lord of the Rings stuff. I picked up Lord of the Rings for like a year or two. Then I went into 40K for my high school years, and of course, when I got out of high school, just like most people, it's like I think I'm ready for fantasy. And I played in one doubles tournament with a friend for 40K, and we won. And I got store credit as a prize, and I used my store credit to buy a box of White Lions and a box of Phoenix Guard, and my fate was sealed.
Yeah.
I only played one army for all of fantasy. I never played someone else's army. I never bought another army. I only ever bought bits to kit bash into elves. And even after the old world blew up, I was kind of like waiting. I thought that they were like kind of done with elves. And I wrote this whole thing like last year too, where it's like, well, hating on elves in an artful way is popular in these other series that I also like Game of Thrones, like Dragon Age. We don't have to talk about Game of Thrones. We talked about that in your chat yesterday. When it's like elves are kind of done.
Well, they felt
they're
like
written
they
in
were.
a different way.
They really
Yeah.
felt like. I mean, vampires hit this too, mind you.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
like
We went through the 2010s with the age of the NU dash vampire.
yeah, like they're like,
Yeah.
oh, these like okay, like everyone's like, okay, everyone's done vampires. Like vampires have been
Right.
done, and they're like, wait, no. Let me tell you about how my vampire is different from the
Sure.
vampires
Yeah.
you know. And then just all this, and we did this with elves. We saw this happen with elves, and like,
Dobby is a good elf.
well, the thing that I like what was said here in chat, where man, this comment's moving here. Where
Yeah.
did it go? Here we go. Be good said. Negative opinion can be unfortunate. Martin sets the standard for keeping a healthy respect of people's passion. And I like the latter half of this especially is respecting people's passion. I think that's really
Yeah.
I think that's like kind of the critical thing. As
Oh,
it's
sure.
okay to feel negative about things. Like
Right.
I'm always kind of biting my like teeth just a little bit when I have to talk about Tzeentch in a positive light because I'm like it's just an army I don't like. You know, like
For sure. I really like. I wish I could see more Tzeentch mortal armies because I think the Tzeentch mortal aesthetic is so cool.
but
Especially as like an antagonist faction. Like you take. I'm sorry, I was about to go on a tangent with
yeah,
aesthetics.
no. But
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
you know, like when my friend friend of the show, Dr. Alex Milonis is around rockin' Tzeentch, his passion for the army brings me back from that like dark place of just like fucking Tzeentch,
Yeah.
it's weird. Like respecting people's passion, I think, is what it's about. And elves, it became the cool thing to hate elves, and I did what I
Oh,
tend to do,
yeah.
which is when the cool thing becomes like hate, I like it. My contrarian takes up.
You lean into the heel, I think is
Oh
the
yeah,
term you've used
yeah.
before.
Like my heel persona comes out. Like it became like I did not like blood elves in World of
World of
Warcraft.
Warcraft.
I hated
They
blood elves.
look kind of run of the mill to me. I've seen the art
Lore
before.
wise, I despise them. They suck. Like like love orcs, but the hatred was ramping up, and I had to troll people, so like I rolled an elf. Like
Oh, for sure.
just
Yeah,
imagine.
and if I may add, there are things that and we've talked about this on prior episodes.
Yeah.
People and I think the Tom Lyons comment the stands true as back then as it does now. You teased us with a neat spin on what we knew, and then threw a curveball in there that just is out there. It not only does it challenge what I thought elves were, it's anathema, um, and to what I wanted out of this army, and I get it. Like the Zcad file, like for the Stone Guard, like it could be 15% smaller. It's not. They lean into it so hard. They put these giant bronze tusks on a yak helmet, on a yak like visage on top of a guy's helmet, and it's like, why?
Mhm.
I get that. There's reasons to dislike it, but it stems beyond that. Like the whole androgyny thing, the whole like what did Morden Solus say? It had to be me. Somebody else might have gotten it wrong.
Yeah.
That is their entire
But
ethos.
Morden
We
Solus is so awesome. Like,
sure.
sorry.
I'm just saying it's an applicable quote, and
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
take it to its extreme, we have to be the guardians of the realms of men, because we
because
believe
nobody
to our
else.
very
Yeah.
core. Yeah, well, we believe that you're incapable of doing it. Not only are you not good enough, but you're like
Well,
for like yeah, and like
well,
so
no.
that
If you can
general
imagine the
attitude.
mentality of a parent, right? Like
Yes,
you've got your kids and they want to help, and it's not malice, but like you know that they can't
right,
do the big responsibility. You do it, and
correct.
that's how.
And that
Yeah.
attitude does like there is an antagonism towards that which has resonated across popular culture, which is why people just hate elves like in general, except for dark elves because dark elves are bad guys.
See,
And
but the hatred of edgelord stuff and like and
no,
the
well, first of all, I guess dark elves get a pass because all of them look like the cover of metal albums, and people like that.
but
That
people
normally
were
hate elves.
getting tired of Driss Orden and Sephiroth and all the edgelord stuff for a while there. The whole trend became all encompassing, and like you weren't allowed to like elves kind of period. And if you played the dark elf, you were a tryhard. Like you were trying too hard to make elves cool, and you can't make them cool. That's where
I
my whole
guess.
my whole like the whole like heel persona thing with Prince Nuada is like people say elves can't be badass, and then I'm like I just share like Prince Nuada images over and over and over again.
Sure, and now I have an entire army of him.
Wood elves forever, but
Uh, Sure.
the Morden
Well,
Sol. Yeah, go ahead. No, I don't want to go back to Morden Solus, but like when you first meet him, he's just like caps a dude like it's nothing, and
for
just like
sure.
sorry, but I like
Absolutely.
that quality to like Nuada and the edgier elves, like
Yeah.
you know.
But so I understand where that was coming from, and that wasn't going to stop me one bit from making the army of my dreams. And as you said, like this started as soon as the elf stuff came out. Like originally, this idea that I had, we have to rewind all the way back to like 2017, 2018, when I'm like, well, if they're not going to, if they're going to, if this is their new idea of elves, like Ideneth Deepkin and Daughters of Cain, where it's like anything that's not like Tolkien's Rivendell or Peter Jackson's Rivendell specifically, is what we're going to build up. I'm like, that's fine, that's cool. How do I build? How do I use my hobby to make this like something for myself?
Look,
And I start to put some ideas together.
real quick chat gang.
Hmm.
I will stand night elves. I think night elves are pretty dope. It for me it's the aesthetic and the music, like when you're in I don't even remember the name of their starting land. But more than that, we stand Pyrotest from Record of Lodoss Wars around these parts. Like pretty much the OG for me. I know Driss Orden was around, but like I hadn't yet read the Drist books yet. I was just reading Dragonlance and stuff. and then I saw
Yeah.
a record of Lodos Wars, and Pyrotess was just like, yeah.
Oh, if we want to quickly downgrade my nerd cred even more, I have not read a single Dungeons and Dragons or Dragonlance book.
I don't care. You're not gonna
Okay.
like no. There's
Yeah.
people out there who'll be like, "What?" I'm like, "They're popcorn fiction. It's just."
Sure, sure. No, I'm sure some of it is excellent. Like, there's a reason why these characters are iconic. Like, how old is Drizzt Do'Urden? This character is probably like 20-ish years old, probably older.
Yeah, I think it's
And
older.
like
It
the
just might be older than me. Like,
sure,
yeah, I
like
think
there's a
I'm fairly
reason.
the origins in the '80s, right? Like, go ahead.
Right, right. And I'm just saying, like, these characters are iconic for a reason. We hold on to them and care about them regardless of how much schlock the fiction actually is. And so I don't want to take away from that. Like, literally, I can't. There's a legacy there for a reason. Nothing I say can really remove anyone's enjoyment, especially someone in their like 10, 15 years older than me that grew up on all of these books.
'89,
Um,
not quite
there you
older,
go.
not
Uh,
quite older than me. So
that's still an impressive legacy for a fictional character to constantly be like different authors take up the helm and stuff like that. And um, yeah, it might be popcorn fiction to some, but it might have built the career of a Disney Pixar writer or something down the
well,
line that we don't know it. And
I
it's
don't
like,
like I don't I see I don't berate popcorn fiction.
yeah,
I call it that, but like I'm like this is not a negative thing from me as a even as a writer. I write schlock. Like I purposely the stuff I like to write is very tongue in cheek and schlocky. But I read like really highbrow garbage like you know, Nightmare Alley and fucking Camus and Cormac McCarthy's like my favorite author. But like,
your my father and yourself could talk more about Cormac McCarthy and everything.
yeah, no,
Um,
continue,
yeah,
continue. I'm just saying, like, I
yeah,
don't like in the spirit of not yucking people's yum. Popcorn. When I call like if I call something popcorn fiction, it is not as an insult. Popcorn's delicious, okay, and it's especially useful when you're at a movie, like you want to be entertained, like popcorn
I
fiction.
am allergic to popcorn. I will buy the dibs.
What? That's
I
horrible. That's horrible.
Why? Dibs are delicious. I will go buy the dibs for like however much they cost, and I will eat them all before the trailers are done.
Fair enough.
That's fine.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
But
No,
anyway,
continue, continue.
so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's like I started to go on. So like in 20, it was like, well, if I want to make they're gonna have to be either mixed order or something like that, and it won't be good. Like I'll either have to super do a lot of proxies if I want to do well at events or something,
So
or
this is
just take them
you
to
were gonna
yeah,
DIY an elf
yeah.
army up.
Yeah, it was originally going to DIY and elf farming,
Why not
and some
IDK? Like out of curiosity.
well IDK like had only just come into existence, and like even back then it was kind of like the balance was off, and people were just taking the eels, and it's like and like there wasn't as much there to really imprint upon. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll take some IDK stuff and mix it in there. I do like a lot of the shapes of some of the armor that IDK have, and we'll find out as we get into the miniatures. I started to borrow a lot from the Baroque shapes that sometimes elves, high elves, are a little too austere to really borrow from. Uh, but anyway, then it turned into like IDK or Cities of Sigmar, and it's like, well, we're gonna finally codify all of these elf things, but then they like took a lot of them away. But like at that time, also Forbidden Powers coming out, and Teclis finally makes an appearance, and it's like, oh, there might be something on the horizon, or if they it could be 3, 4, 5 years from now. So while at least it looks like it's going to be possible, I might just try and make something out of Cities of Sigmar. And to prep for that, I made the Vampire Vikings as like I really want like a narrative driven, regardless of how competitive or cheese the list ends up being. I want all of these figures to be brimming with character. And I started writing stuff to which informed how the characters would look and how their environments would like the thing a few days ago where I posted about the vampire lord with the spirit axe, and that was a thing from the army 2 years ago. Like I didn't want them to just have.
See,
This was just yeah.
Hades here in chat. I didn't realize Hades was like this massive elf stand. By the way, Like
Yes,
I
he
have
replies to
registered.
me in a lot of different Discord groups and such.
Like I registered it, but when you say like Hades Death God, I'm thinking Underworld, I'm thinking Death, I'm
Mhm.
thinking maybe Ghosts, like possibly Chaos, right? Because Hades is god of the underworlds, like
Yeah.
um. But no, like elves all the way. So you get a spark of
Yeah.
hope, basically. That
Right, right. And then I use that to practice, and then the Lumineth come out. So it's like, well, but it was like June by the time the kits were finally released because of the delays from COVID and everything. Like the factory shut down for like a month and a half. Like they didn't want like, and there was like all of the shipping shortages and like and just not. We think about the Ever Given last year as like the meme, but really the port of Los Angeles where they're getting like all of the scenery and stuff that's coming by boat from China and Taiwan. There was like a 4.5 week backup of stuff at the port of Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and that's why we couldn't get the shrine on something on time and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, but and I said to myself, and this is going to lead into the slideshow a little bit. I didn't want this to just be an experiment in nostalgia. I wanted this to be a true exemplar of what I value most in art. And I wanted truly, more than anything else, to be a reflection of my own tastes while being respectful of the Warhammer canon. I'm sorry, I see you laughing. I assume it's something in chat.
Yeah, no, Hades Death God. Listen, Greek myths are my thing. I like Hades, not the dead, but elves are just what I aspire to be. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. No, respect, man. Respect.
Mm-hmm. I too like James Woods Hades. Uh, so I went about this whole thing like,
I too like Nagash.
yes,
Hades is Nagash. That. Sorry, go on.
yes.
Go on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was saying that anyway. And I really started to pull together, like behind me right here. These are all coffee table sized art books from video games, films, museum catalogs. I do have too many of them. I
Do
have
you, do
started
you,
to slowly.
you have the Final
Yeah.
Fantasy one, don't you?
Which
Um,
one? Which Final Fantasy?
what the classic artist who did all the old school stuff.
Not Tetsuya Nomura, the watercolor guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I have the Book of Sky is too big. I don't have that. Google help us. It was the guy who does the watercolor art. Or sorry, this is for chat gang. Because I'm blanking on the name right now because I have too
I'm
many artist names.
I'm a little fragged right now. Not gonna lie.
Uh-huh. Oh, Amano. Um, Not Takashi Amano. Yeah, Yoshi.
I got it.
I'm gonna look
Keep
this up.
talking. I
Yeah.
got it. Keep going.
Mhm. Last name is Amano. It
Yeah,
starts with a Y.
Yoshitaka Amano.
Yoshitaka Amano. Yeah, I do have some of his work over here, um, but not the Book of Sky. The Book of Sky is like the size of my torso. It's crazy. But I do have one book for Final Fantasy 14. I have the Final Fantasy 15 book. I have one of the guides for, I think it's six, seven, one
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
bridges of the
yeah.
three
Well,
games.
so you grabbed a bunch of
Uh-huh.
books that
Right, and
of
over
video game
time, that was
art.
the other.
Go ahead.
Right, and museum catalogs, and it's like I've collected these over the years, and like tried to learn from them because like I have this thing where my imagination far exceeds my ability to visualize what I want in any medium other than miniatures. Which I think I've kind of succeeded now because I really do enjoy that which I have created in this army.
Well,
Uh,
I think that's a lot of people though. Like one of the main things is or I hear anyone with creative aspirations is like what I put down doesn't match with what was in my head.
mhm.
Or like everyone has problems sort of like articulating hell man, I'm a writer. Words are my thing. And when I'm speaking in real time, it's a car wreck up in my head. I have the idea of what I'm trying to articulate. Um,
Yeah.
and getting it out is jumbled. I'm making connections to things that aren't linear. When I write, I can do a better job. But every time I pick it up and I read it, I'm like, well, did I really describe what was in my head?
Yeah,
you know.
and I wanted to make sure that I didn't feel that way with this army because I felt that way before, especially with the Stormcast.
Hmm.
Like I've gotten, I wanted to make sure 100% the ideas which I had in terms of funneling all of that inspiration into this. I didn't want to feel like there was room for improvement in terms of visualizing the ideas that I had. There's always room for improvement in like technical execution. Like I could have painted things better. I could have made certain things a little cleaner. Maybe gotten a little bit bolder in terms of sculpting, but in terms of taking the concept I have in my writing or from the inspiration, like the individual art inspirations, and funneling those into like the characters or the units. I didn't want to be like, I'm going to need to do this unit over again. That wasn't an option for me. So I did multiple color tests and things to get it right. One of the pictures, I believe it's one of the last art cards, with there's a picture of a tree revenant, a white lion guy, and then a pewter old high elf hero. Where I was getting the color tests right, and it was
So
like I wanted to make sure
so
this was a red.
so what was
Eh,
the, like, you mentioned
eh,
a lot of different inspirations. Was there an
yeah.
anchoring thought? Because I've got this
Um.
one image sitting
Yeah.
here, and this is what made me think of actually like Final Fantasy art, because this just screams like the old Amano like
Yeah.
watercolors.
Oh, so this cover art that's on screen right now is a commission. A friend of mine, Cleveland Mosher, who has worked on and off for card games and such. He also did the Night Scar art, which I've shown you before. This will be used in a future project for Adepticon. I on that I will say no more without spoiling anything.
This is
Um,
excellent.
he Yeah. He is a professional artist. I don't know if he takes commissions right now. He is the main art. He's like makes his own video game. It's like a side scroller ISO sort of video game. He's been featured as one of the finalists in Vati Vidya's Art of Souls, like the Souls fan art Kickstarter. I believe he's in that. And
Great
he's
channel,
done.
by the way. If you love the Soul
Oh yeah.
series, Vadi Vidya.
Um, Cleveland is a phenomenal artist, and I make sure to tag him whenever. And we took the original Paul Dainton artwork, which is this is a needlepoint of, which is just an elf with a spear and shield in front of one of the great gates of Ulthuan. And I said I would like this to be for Lumineth. Granted, it's my version of Lumineth. Like this is based on one of my kit bashes, as to almost emulate that original art with the like you can see the clearly
Well,
the Venari
homage.
shield.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Yes,
this is homage, right? Like you've even
right.
got the
This
cape
is
action.
Yeah, the cape is almost granted it's flipped, but it's fluttering in the wind almost the same way. It is very clearly inspired by that same artwork. Um,
Yeah, like they're yeah.
I would have to show you the original High Elves
Yeah,
art,
you
like
showed me at
for
in the one.
yeah the Eighth Ed Army book. Yes,
Yeah.
and that remains my favorite. But anyway, in terms of an anchoring point, I think the only true anchoring point was I've never owned a red army, and I wanted the army to have red as one of its primary colors. And I kind of went from there. There was no singular like I could say there's a singular concept, like maybe like certain JRPGs, but like even then, I've tried to distill so much inspiration into it
Hmm.
that there is no one main thing. Maybe, excuse me, Renaissance or Baroque era portraiture.
Hmm.
But that's even then, that's kind of broad.
Right.
Uh,
So you really just like sort of a gestalt of inspirations. Like
Correct.
you kind of let it
Yes.
all. So you let it all kind of like come and play together. And
Yes.
was there? I guess we'll maybe get into this. So I've got
Yeah.
some of these art
So
card
yeah. So first of
inspirations. Yeah.
all, I started looking at artists I appreciate, and some of them who directly teach me, like Aaron Lovejoy, who painted the Horus Prima Chorus in the corner. He is my painting coach. I pay him through Patreon. I've donated miniature monthly for many years now, and him and I monthly talk about my painting and stuff like that. Originally, it was only supposed to go for 1 year or so. like it was about the end of like the middle of 2019, and it was supposed to like we would culminate at Adepticon 2020 when we'd finally see each other again, and like kind of like hang out and do stuff and kind of be like, I think I'm ready to move on. That still hasn't happened yet, and I have no problem just like keep coaching with him. He also works with like masters, like some people where it's like I'm just a better painter. He teaches people who are objectively, he says, better painters than him. But anyway, that's just a little bit
So,
about Aaron Love. Yeah.
so, 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 did you actually find the coaching useful
Yeah.
then? Like, you
Oh
actually
yes,
like?
yes. If you remember my pinned tweet where I posted stuff from my armies from 2013 to now, um, my 2019 and 2020 stuff is in part really helped by him critiquing, especially like my Death Army and the beginning of the Lumineth, and he's helped me like basically every step of the way when I have key questions about doing something new. And I've been learning so much over the course of this army. I didn't want to just play it safe. I wanted to be like, what can I push with this unit? What can I push with this unit? Even in small ways.
Yeah,
And then we got to the end, and it's like it really has been leaps and bounds in certain aspects of my painting.
that's pretty cool. Soren, real quick,
Yeah.
dropping a tier 3 sub for 24 years of support. Thank you so much, Soren. He says, "Good evening from Texas." Good evening to Texas. How's it going, my friend?
Yes. And Hades Death God, I believe, yes, it is the same same one on the Black Library Omnibus for elves. I believe the one on the omnibus is slightly recolored. It's a little more silver, but it is the same Paul Dayton art. Um,
And then Tanlin asks, "How do you find a coach for a new paper?" I'm just gonna say,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, so generally, a lot of painters who make YouTube videos also have Patreons. And some of the tiers for their Patreons are coaching tiers. They are very different in price. So you're going to have to shop around. Like I am on the Patreon for Craft World Studio. And without, even though these numbers are kind of public, I don't feel like using the numbers because
You don't
it's
need
like,
to.
yeah,
That's fine.
right. But Craft World charges double what I pay for Aaron's services monthly. That might be worth it for you, especially if you like Craft World style. But that's what they charge based on their availability and what they offer and stuff like that. And it's entirely up to those painters.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not hesitate to shop around, particularly through YouTube and Instagram. A lot of Instagram, they kind of sometimes put their tutorials on a Patreon and stuff like that. But like, feel free to look through their tutorial, like their Patreon tiers, and some of them do offer coaching.
Yeah, right on, right on.
Yeah.
So we've got this. You got Vince's Marathi. Like, what were you pulling from the Marathi here? What, you talk about
That
inspiration.
was these were emblematic of their body of work. Actually, what inspired me the most from Vince's stuff was his Slanesh, particularly also the passion, the indulgence of it,
Yeah.
because I was going to indulge in Lumineth somewhat the similar way that Vince has with Slanesh. I don't have the opportunity to paint as often during the day as Vince does, so it's not like I get the opportunity to like knock out all of this stuff over a relatively short period of time. But like I did listen to his Slanesh show a few times and watch the hobby tutorials and be like, what is he doing that's paying extra attention to this stuff over his regular body of work? And I also learned from his Daughters of Cain and stuff like that. Aaron just generally is a helpful. Shout out to Oscar Lars. I don't know if he's going to listen to this. I'll probably show it to him later.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar is the guy who generally he always wins at Nova, like best painted. No, best painted is your first, or get it. And at Adepticon, he's always first or second place without fail, because just the stuff that he paints is so phenomenal and teachable. When I paint judge, like at ACO, I have a folder of Oscar Lars's work from pictures I've taken of his stuff, as well as pictures he's taken of his stuff. And you can zoom in and you can just take apart all of the techniques. They're so easy to read on the models. And it's like, well, he's doing this. And he's also making sure he does this. He's making sure that there's hash marks on the leather to showcase extra texture. He's showcasing uses of spot colors, like in all of the rusted brass and bronze. There's verdigris pips all over here that you can clearly, like, it's so
Very
easy to read.
a very
Yeah,
deliberate style, in other words.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Oscar
And
is
then some
also
of
on Patreon, says be good.
there you go.
Man, there you go.
Yeah, and then this other stuff was stuff from like friends
Yeah,
and just
so
like
so we got the Skaith's Wild Hunts,
yeah,
Meatloaf.
Louis Sugden is the new presenter for Warhammer Plus. I've been following her for a long time. People might remember her Lord of Change, where it's like she uses like
Very
all of the
vibrant.
colors.
Very
Yes,
vibrant.
super vibrant. And
Very
then
like
like,
almost like a comic book unapologetic sort of like in your face
oh
about it. I
yes,
like this.
oh it reaches through the page, like it reaches out and grabs you and gives you a bear hug.
Yeah.
That's like I heard that once about describing art at the Vatican. Her miniatures do that to you,
Yeah.
where it's like it wherever you are in the room, it reaches out and grabs you.
Yeah.
And that's what you kind of want, especially in a gaming army.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Her works. This is. I like this again. Like it actually reminds me of again like comic books, which just like
yeah.
unapologetically like what it is. I love it. This is good. Um,
Mitzi is a friend. He's part of the Raw crew, the Realms at War. You may have seen their stuff like
yeah, Mitzi and
it's
Jimbo,
almost,
right? Like,
yes, Mitzi and Jimbo. It's the Warhammer equivalent of like the Renaissance Fair. It's a very fun event. I hope to go one day. It's rough because they're so popular. They generate such goodwill, but it's a very intensive narrative event. It's like we need more game masters, but we also want it to be intimate. So it's like when we say we have a cap of 40 people, we kind of mean it because we can only control so much of the environment with a crew of four like game masters.
yeah,
Um, so again, one day I'll get to it. Um, yeah, and then the rest of it is my friend Nick Baton and Chris Peach, who always come up with this cool, inventive stuff, even with little subtle tweaks. Um, Chris Peach up top, he knows how to paint to like a tabletop quality standard, like a little bit above that, like in no time at all. Most of those units took under 1 week to paint per
per unit, not just
per
model.
unit per unit.
Yeah. Huh.
It's insane. Oh, it's absolutely insane.
So,
And yeah.
was there any efficiency tricks you picked up from Chris? Like in.
Everyone's, yeah, here and there. I can't pick which ones off the top of my head because my painting style has evolved so much since then. But he was really good at just like, yeah, I kind of did this, and I'm like, I think I should put some wood off head. That looks nice. And then I'm gonna spray them white. Gonna do some blue wash in the recesses. Pick up the faces, the gold, and do the bases, and they're done. And I'm like, you mean it's that like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that the general and the griffin, yeah, he took a week by himself, but once you just do the recess shading on the feathers and pick out some stuff, it's easy. He used to be, I believe, the head of the army painter studio, so
Yeah.
he knows his way around painting a battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and Nick Baton, him and I go back and forth every other day. It feels like talking about stuff. I use these in particular because it's AOS appropriate, but really his love is Ultramarines, and he does some crazy stuff with his Ultramarines.
So, someone to
Yeah,
point SJ at, in other words, SJ Arcade from chat. He's a big Smurf fan. Um,
yeah,
it's okay. I haven't disowned you. I still love you, SJ. So you drew inspiration from both like an appreciative level, like looking at like, hey, these are people I like, coaching, but
yeah,
then also peer group. Do you think that that was like necessary? I'm not just going to say useful, helpful. Do you think that was necessary in
yeah.
completing your project?
So there are certain things where it's like, I wanted to figure out like, well, what are the people that inspire me doing that could help me paint a better army, like create a better presentation. And it was like use more vibrant colors, um, do more wild, but also more subtle conversions. Like you want to make sure that as people get into like looking at your army, say at a convention or for a display, the longer their eye lingers on stuff, the more they're going to find. But you should also not be afraid here and there to go really wacky. And it was like stuff that was just things that started to appear over and over again. And it's like, maybe I should try and do that. Like my Cities of Sigmar army, like before Cities of Sigmar was a thing, I had too many colors fighting each other on all of the models, and they didn't really work. The Stormcast, the bases were all really cool, but the army had like no conversions. It really felt like I didn't quite get my own stamp on them. I was associated with really being cool with Stormcast and like painting them well, but they didn't really feel like my own. With the undead, I got down the narrative stuff, but they don't really have a cohesive color scheme. A lot of rust, a lot of natural colors. They look almost too dull because I went through all of the trouble of making the weathering look nice, but they don't really stand out properly. And I mean, I also took them only to one event and stuff. I barely have even now a full undead army anymore. So I didn't want to make those mistakes again. I wanted to try and kind of reset and
Was
say, well, if I, yeah,
I mean, just real quick, identifying your mistakes in a manner that's not sort of defeatist, or I think
yeah,
everyone is critical of themselves, but to be
mhm,
critical in a manner that you can learn from is very difficult.
yes.
Was there anything where you're like you didn't feel the defeatist vibe from those mistakes you made and you were able to build on it? Was there anything that like went off in your head? Was there a friend that said something to you? Was there yeah,
Well, I mean,
how did you defeat the defeatism, right? Like how did you do that?
yeah, yeah. Talking to Vince a lot really helped. Getting a lot of, and I give this advice to people in general. Seek very specific feedback. You have to be able to analyze what you think needs improvement and provide that language to people who not only you're confident are capable of being teachers, but also are experts in the thing you're trying to improve. So if my issues were color theory, presentation,
Hmm.
and standing out, I need to seek out the people or take notes from people who are good at presentation, color theory, and painting technique.
Yeah.
So I did talk to Vince a lot. I have the luxury of being able to talk to Vince on a regular basis. And I really do appreciate him day in and day out. Like to the point being where for the Rantathon, I chose the boring option and asked him to paint one of my elves for the sole purpose of learning from him. So the next batches of elf units that I paint will learn from how he painted my army in my color scheme. I threw in the package with him, a printout of the steps I do, knowing that he won't mostly keep to them. And I asked him, if you deviate from this in any number of ways, please just take notes, scribble on it, put it back in the box, send it back to me, because I'd love to learn from that process. And it's just a matter of my golden rule is the first step towards improvement is wanting to. And so I don't really have that defeatist mentality because I already know what could have been improved upon with those other projects.
Hmm.
And I want to apply that knowledge to this.
So
And I think I did.
would you say
Yeah.
that there's like a sort of a humility that you got to have? Like
Oh, absolutely.
like people who think
And
they're
I did.
already at the top of the mountain are going to have a hard.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of that, oh yeah, like I struggled with that big time because people think, especially around here in New Jersey, like I was at Summer Slaughter this past weekend, and people would not stop pulling me aside, talking about my army, asking if I did commissions. Someone wanted to give me money, and it's like, what if I gave you this much money to paint an army for me? What would you say as a hypothetical? I said, I would tell you to buy a new car. Um, and I was like, because I don't want to.
Yeah.
I only wanted, yeah, that's the other thing. It's like, I only ever wanted to work on passion projects.
Yeah.
I already have a job I like. Excuse me, I'm going to refill my water in a little bit. Uh, and so it's like, I want to get this right. And knowing that I want to get this right requires an understanding of where I faltered in the past and going and finding those solutions.
Yeah.
It's like, Vince, how do I use color theory better? How do I do brush control better? Louise, how do I punch up my saturation? Nick, Chris, what inspires you to make these grand displays, seemingly without forethought or effort? You just do it. What is in your mind? What's going on in there?
Yeah.
And that just becomes that gestalt sort of notes and feedback that I use to apply for the elves.
Well, I feel like if you ask, 10 out of 10 people with like a passion project like this, they're all going to give you a little bit of a different answer on like
Absolutely.
what I said,
And
like
I
was the anchor or whatever. Like what's interesting to me is the gestalt approach, because I'm like I usually get inspired by like writing's the best analog I have for this, so I'm gonna try to use writing. I will get obsessed with an idea. Like I will get
yeah.
obsessed with like almost a singular idea. Um, I don't see anyone who's going to play my vampire game here in chat. The story I have been wanting to tell for the last 3 or 4 years is one of like.
I'm gonna turn off my camera while I get get
Sounds
water.
good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm still here, by the
no,
way,
no, no.
though. So you can yeah.
Yeah, the story I've wanted to tell, I've been obsessed with for the last few years, is this sort of cyclical, uh, like story of the darker half. This.
What do you mean by the darker half?
So, like, basically that every person is simultaneously the best and worst version of themselves. Every one of us at all times is simultaneously our best and worst version. And in spite of ourselves, that bad part can drive us in positive ways if we don't let it. Like the sort of dark and the light. The people who know how to, like where to shine the light the best often do that because they've spent the most time in the dark. And so if you have the ability to sort of fight back the dark inside, you can do something with it. But I'm a very
So what I'm hearing from that, and I understand as like a writer myself, maybe because I'm more art driven, and I think that's like art history is something that drives me a lot. Like you'll see in the other art cards as we go through the rest of the presentation, a lot of photographs or references from paintings available at the Met. And for me, it's like, this is a visual medium. We're telling a story with miniatures that we put on the table. And hold on, I'm just putting the computer down. There we go. So your darker half or better half, what does that look like? How do you visualize that? And it's okay if you don't have an answer.
No, for me specifically, I mean it's a literal. For me, there's a literal interpretation of it. The story I'm writing is very Jungian, very out there.
Okay.
Like how I've because my brain is like an amplifier to like the mundane. Anything normal becomes abnormal in my head. I always take things to 11. I always weird them out. If I can get personal for a minute, when I was driving down to North Carolina for my mom's funeral 8 years ago, we had my son who was just born. He was 3 months old, 4 months old at the time. Like my mom, I live in, everyone knows Wisconsin for the most part. You can put the clues together. It's about a 16-hour drive.
Yeah.
I don't remember a whole lot of that entire experience. Like the whole thing. I was there for a week and came back 2 days late from what I was supposed to take off. And I have this very vivid, like, what I can only describe as a hallucination of, as I drove back down to North Carolina, my son was technically sitting in the car carrier, and I spent most of the time sitting in the back seat on the way down because I caught a ride with my aunt. And and I would look over, and where my son was supposed to be sitting, I saw this little like scabby-kneed, emaciated me instead,
Hmm.
just sitting beside me. And every hour we got closer to North Carolina, this scabby-kneed, abused version of me that I had taken like from myself and literally locked off and jettisoned from my body so that I could cope and become an adult.
Yeah.
Every mile I got closer, this thing got closer to me until finally we were just the same person. And when I came back from North Carolina, I came back with a darkness in me that had always been there, but it was out. It was I I have never been a happy person. Like, I'm just not a guy that I don't wake up happy. You know,
Yeah.
I I've never been that person. I've always been a bit of an edgelord. I've always been the goth, I've always been like that. But this was take the kid who was currently being like abused, or not the kid, but like the teenager that I was in abusive situations, was had an alcoholic uncle that kicked the crap out of him, and worse, like, and that kid was worse. Like, that what he had seen and what he had been through was worse, and it had fucked him up. And then he was stuck in me. All the barriers were down, everything was gone. And when I got back from North Carolina, my anger was quite frankly out of control. That's when my drinking started to get out of control. Like, I
And you try and use this this emotion, this pain, to sometimes try and fuel your writing, the inspiration for your artwork.
yeah.
No,
So
I may not be able to empathize with that because I do not have a similar experience, but I do understand what, like, if that's what drives your artwork,
I've
then go for it.
I've always
Yeah.
had I've always had various driving forces and stuff like that to my art. I'll get
Mhm.
obsessed with the idea of what if what if there's a story told of a guy psychoanalyzing a patient, and as the psychoanalysis unfolds, you find out that they are the one being analyzed, and it's actually them
Sure.
externalizing like this horrible trauma, and then they, like, and the story ends in murder. And
Yeah.
that was
I
the
guess
story
I
I wrote.
guess
That was a story I wrote called The Patient, and I wrote that before the situation with my kid. I wrote a story called Flat Tire about a guy getting into a car accident and then, like,
I
murdering,
guess
like, not just the
um
person who got into the accident, but like some bystanders and stuff. Like, I wrote very violent, like, very Chuck Palahniuk meets Cormac McCarthy meets, like, Stephen King, sort of like just visceral, angry, cerebral type stuff. And
yeah. No, I've been trying to find an answer to your question if there was a singular inspiration. Um, I did go back to the design ethics of two things. One, my favorite Lord of the Rings movie is not any of the Lord of the Rings movies. It is the behind the scenes for making Lord of the Rings. I bought like the 4K Blu-ray so I could watch that in the best quality available. And it was a mixture of that and a lot of essays on the Ghibli films. And for me, it's this whole ethos of I find what's most interesting is the these living worlds that people create, where they have to build out such detail as to frame the drama of their stories with such tactile believability. It could be as wild as Aragon or Spirited Away, where really we don't even know the full extent of the rules of these settings,
mhm.
but they are so fleshed out as to provide almost their own escapism, even if it's not escapist literature. Spirited Away is not an escapist script. It's almost like Alice in Wonderland. It's forcing this little girl to grow up.
Well, that's every
And
Studio
right.
Ghibli film. Like, it's a
Well,
little girl
sure,
grows up.
sure.
Like, that's
I'm not trying to lose the thread in any one subject, but it's like you talk about having this pain and trying to either work it out or
Well,
analyze it through your
this caused
fiction.
one
Yeah,
story. This
yeah,
experience has become
mhm,
externalized as this one story I've been trying to write now for a little bit about, like,
mhm.
sort of like infinite mirrors and this darker half, and so there's like this whole like sort of mirror verse in it where
Yeah,
like it's again it's a very Jungian story where essentially like uh, through a different lens you become a different person, and like it's a very transformative story that I'm writing. It's a horror story, but it's
I
I
don't.
like horror that
Yeah,
comes from a place of empathy, not horror that comes from a place of malice. Like
sure.
Annihilation is the best possible example I have of this, where it is a story about pain and how
Yeah,
pain changes you no matter what happens. But not only does pain change you, it ripples out from you, and your pain resonates with everyone around you until everybody is different and everyone has changed. And
you sound like you want to be a Cathalar.
um, yeah, yeah. But Annihilation is, but it's a very sympathetic story once you like.
No,
You,
I get that,
so yeah.
and mine I guess comes from wanting to create these worlds so believable that the miniatures that I create almost feel like they are a snapshot from a real place and time in the setting that we all enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I have fabricated in a way that is so cohesive. It almost feels like it could have come out of one of Games Workshop stories, only it's influenced by so much more and enhanced by the wider library of source material and work ethic that allowed me to create it.
Right.
So we have up the first panel. Like I don't mean to transition away from so lightly the your
I want everyone to
yeah.
chat gang. You're awesome. Dropping 1,000 RDP. Remind everyone chat gang's not to mess with.
Mhm.
Lord Will with the internet hug. I think I'm finally through it. My little whatever my dark transformation was that I think I like hitting rock bottom is liberating, type feeling. Like I didn't hit rock bottom. I had so much deeper I could have went.
All right.
And I was always aware that but like I corrected the tailspin. Like I feel like I've corrected the tailspin now, and it took me a long time, and it took me a lot of friends and a lot of late nights and a lot of stuff. So it's I'm fine. You're not. It's not dismissive. We're good. Yeah, Negamef.
No, no, I know you know that. It's just I don't want to make it feel like
Gilead's.
we're hard turning here, and it's
Yeah,
like we
yeah.
can
No,
we can.
it's. I'm not used to getting
Yeah.
asked questions about my own process on my own show. So,
Hey,
uh,
that's what I. It's a lot of what comes from empathy in art, and it's also inquisitive. Like that's one of the things I think I try and emphasize. Like never be afraid to ask people that you know come from a very different background, and sometimes just like pick any like truly like innovative, imaginative artist out there, someone that you revere, and go up to them and it's like ask questions. Just like I would like to know how you did this. Um, because even though if we don't even work in the same medium, like I'm doesn't matter who it is. I would like to apply how you made this great thing towards my own work ethic.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of how I've gotten to where I am right now. Going back to my pin tweet, 7 years ago, I painted closer to shit than good. It wasn't terrible, but you can see the transition even from one year to the next. Of like even from 2017 to 2018, I had the same Stormcast, same color scheme, but they look like they were painted by two different people,
Right.
and that's because I kept looking for that feedback. Can we go back to the armor thing for a
Yeah, yeah,
second?
yeah. We can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, going through all of this library of documentation of like what I consider to be Bibles, and going back to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which I'm lucky enough to live within about 100 miles of. One day I will actually pay for a regular membership. I really should. You get so many perks out of it. Vince definitely was an inspiration because one day, like I said, I wanted to do a Red Army, and you see his Slaves to
That's
Darkness, and I was like, that I want to do that.
that's where I saw Edvard Munch's the Succubus, I believe it's called. Was at the Met. Like
Yes, that painting.
yeah.
Yeah, I tend not to remember, because I'm boring and I look at the technique sometimes more than what the art is supposed to be evocative of, particularly the
That
portraiture,
that was
the
like
use of
my
color in yeah.
the peak Edvard Munch H.R. Geiger like surrealist
Hmm.
meets bio horror phase for me, where I was just obsessed with like basically like like the stuff that would make David Lynch proud, like just like the
Oh,
trippy weird
absolutely.
like yeah.
Um,
Go on. So
yeah,
I
there's
looked for it. Like I looked for. I'm like
oh
there's an
yeah,
Edvard Munch
there's certain
here.
people. It's like,
I'm gonna go
what's your favorite?
find that. Like
People ask me what's my favorite painting of the Met, and I can't tell them,
interesting.
because it's I appreciate the artistry more than the art, which I think is the main thing about the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes stuff, where it's like, all right, we want to adapt Lord of the Rings to film. We want to do it right. How do we do it? And you see the town that rises up out of mud and rocky shores in New Zealand to create all of this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't just like fly by the seat of their pants in every regard. They had years of pre-production, concepting and stuff, and it's like I wanted that to kind of show
So
in my work. Yeah.
you really wanted this to be real. You wanted this
Right.
army to live and breathe and be rooted
Absolutely.
in like in reality. You wanted to show that a texture that looked like armor,
Right.
that like
Yes.
you really wanted to you
Yeah.
were
So we
actually you
have
weren't just painting an army, you were world building in
right,
essentially.
and I really wanted to do, especially in a homebrew like this, where it's like I really want to make sure that every aspect it almost infers this wider cultural inheritance, something that extends beyond the edges of the frame. So like with the armor, it's like I knew I wanted to capture this thing that Elrond was wearing, this the samurai stuff, and Vince kind of nailed it for me, and that's how I applied that. Can we go to the next one, please?
Yeah.
Here's where we can talk a little bit more about what do we want our elves to look like. Um,
There's my guy.
yes. So like it technically it started like there was a picture up in the Games Workshop in the Cherry Hill Mall, and I was like, what? I my brain has this image of a very edgy looking elf with white hair. Where do I remember it from? And it took me years until like, thank you, Google. It's actually from a book called Gilead's Blood. I'm not sure if it's a vampire or not, like an elf vampire, or I don't. The
No, it looks
book's like,
awesome. I don't like. I want to read
yeah,
this. I've never read this.
it's a Dan Abnett book too, so it's it's good.
Huh.
And the as far back as some of my inspirations go, of a very clear inspiration for me was also the Witcher games, because they also had this approach of this tactile naturalism. Because part of the Witcher lore is like based on like the Polish interpretations of all of these European cultures, and they had this very Italian Renaissance vibe to their high elves, regardless of how little they are actually in the game. Like that main art that I have in the bottom left is like the main art. When you look up, they're called the NL. That image comes up and not much else. But that was all I needed to kind of like infer the vibe I wanted. Plus Prince Nuada, plus Elder Scrolls. I can only fit 4 of these on here to make it sort of cohesive. But I really liked how Elder Scrolls depicts like their elves as well. I didn't want them to look like someone put ear makeup on a guy, like a person. Part of, if you want to call it like my neighborhood lore, I was only the only ever high elf player. Almost everyone else in my gaming group either plays undead, a form of chaos, a form of orcs, or dwarves, and there's just the one dwarf guy. So I wanted them to reflect that they don't really live in like a nice part of town, as it were, in
That's
the
funny.
grand scheme.
So you
Yeah,
drew from actually like your real surrounding, like your neighborhoods. You're like,
yeah,
no, if this is what my army's fighting all the time, they're in a part of the mortal
right.
realms that's like brutal.
Yes,
That's actually really funny.
and yeah, and as we'll get into kind of like the lore, just to be very brief about it, there's the question like not all armies in the game represent state powers or like you need to do something.
No, Molly's here. Keep talking.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Oh yeah, my water break, your break. Talking to the audience. So those who are like keen about like Warhammer factions, um, not every army represents like the nation or governing body of their faction. Like Gloomspite, like most just destruction armies, um, uh, death armies, for example, don't really. There is no um, like I was about to say like for Bone Reapers, for example. Bone Reapers is probably a bad example, but like I guess in order, like there are the cities of Sigmar, there are the Fire Slayer like holds.
Hey, we have
Um,
Ulfenkarn now. Like
yes,
we
there you
we've
go.
got Assia. Like we've got
Right.
they've started to populate the world a little bit, but the thing I love about AOS
It's
is
more than just
it's
the Grand Empire of Nagash.
yeah, it sits at this crossroads. That's what I love about this is it sits at the crossroads of the kind of meta details you can gravitate towards and be like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, and get inspired by. But there's so much blank canvas where you can populate the world with your take
Right.
on these things that inspire you. That is one of the things I absolutely adore about Age of Sigmar. I, I, I feel like they could write lore for as long as they've written World That Was lore. What, 30 odd years or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
Like, and they still wouldn't fill up the canvas. Whereas with the World That Was, it felt like they had filled up the canvas, you know?
Oh yeah. And I'm just trying to emphasize that my army is its own self-contained like organization. It
Yeah.
does not
Are you ready for the next cell?
yes, you can.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
All right. Um I have to now wait to see which one it is because it's delayed by about 10 12 seconds. Oh, here we go. So just as a quick recap on this one, not only am I inspired by popular culture in terms of like video games and stuff, like we have a character, like I was sorcelled by this idea of the character from the Elder Scrolls Online. I've never played a minute of Elder Scrolls Online, but I really love all the trailers and how they bring to life all the stuff um, from those games and the character that's in the trailers but not actually in the game. I tried to bring her to life in the form of a character back in the day. This is what she used to look like. And now she looks like what you see on the screen on the bottom right. Transformed a little bit by my hobby ability, as well as just like the story getting a little more mature, a little darker. But then we also have something as simple as the Terracotta Warriors, which I really tried to have as a prime inspiration for my Stormcast like halfway through like the 2 year sort of cycle that I was on them for, which didn't quite work out because uh, plate armor is a very Western European thing. An army covered in plate armor does not well take the color scheme of the Terracotta Warriors because their uniforms were mostly gambeson, wool, and lamellar plates doesn't really mesh together. But I was able to take like the terracotta texture that is present on the Terracotta Warriors and transplant it to Avalinor's spirit mask. Um, Now, the lore for the elemental spirits isn't quite clear, probably on purpose and for the best. And I just had this idea that it doesn't actually speak, so I was okay with making the spirit mask all one color. It's all one type of very ancient stone, and you can almost see in this picture. Granted, it's very zoomed out. That it's supposed to be ancient. This mask could be over 1,000 years old. It's covered in scratches and dirt and everything like that,
It's going
while maintaining
white at the tips, right? Like
yes, and while maintaining this kind of saturated, because terracotta under certain lights does have like this jade green color. It's not reflective; it's very matte, but it really does have this unique look, which I wanted to replicate. And I guess the sort of headcanon is they summon Avalinor to battle. They just have the mask. They put the mask on the ground. The Stone Mage prays, and across the realms, and like this body of light appears, almost like Final Fantasy Eidolon style, and Avalinor comes up. Um, yeah.
yeah.
Oh. No, that's what you were typing. Yeah.
Responding to Hades, there. The game really turned up the racism.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I wouldn't say turned up the racism so much as didn't bother to tone it down any sort of cultural stereotypes from Europe. They
Right.
didn't. Yeah, I don't. They just like were making an XP for British interpretations or European interpretations of the rest of the world mixed with Tolkien stuff, and with the comedy like that's inherent in Warhammer. I would say it kind of worked, but it really had its limits that we have now shed the chains of and then some. Uh,
Yeah.
that's what we have. Yeah. So next one. Now we're getting a little bit more into the weeds in terms of me really thinking about the characters I wanted to do. The Cathlar I chose as an example. It's because I put in a lot of thought in a very short period of time because I saw the Slanesh model, the Shard Speaker, and I was like, I love that costume so much.
It's such a
I
good
want
model.
I want to turn this into one of my characters. And so I went back. I found this art, like this Italian art, literally like the Primavera painting. And as I was looking, and then I found an alternate art color thing from The Witcher 3. And to me, that's not only does it fit the character, like the cloak is open in the same way, um, but it's also this
Well,
elf interpretation
you can
of the
see
Renaissance.
the
Yeah.
green and the gold actually show up in your model too, which is what's cool here.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that like I kind of transplanted it one for one to an extent, with like how the vines work and everything like that. And it was like I really like that. And then you see it put to practice in the final model of just trying to have my own thing with like the Hellboy skin with the hair and the yellow eyes and the lips mixed with this very I like the juxtaposition I've come up with where you have these almost alien ethereal type of like elves like they don't look human but then they wear these textiles which are right out of the Renaissance. All of the uses of the oranges, the golds, the blues. So you almost have a high fantasy race wearing low fantasy to historical clothing.
Hmm.
And I knew if I was going to give them more traditional skin tones, it would look almost too close to the old world. It wouldn't look creative enough. I don't think it would look evocative enough. It would look fine. It would look very nice. But oh, what happened
It's
now?
chat. Keep going. No, you're fine, man.
Okay, now I see the
Chat
yeah.
is the
Oh,
show within the
okay.
show. You have to understand. Like we.
Yes,
So not only do we stand. I don't remember all the things we stand around here,
Yennefer and Triss.
but we stand redheads around these parts.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
there's a very evil sort of like master of the shadows type. She's a primogen in the Toreador primogen. Some of you play vampires are gonna know what this means. But basically, one of the leaders of one of the clans. Yeah, over your head. She's
yeah.
grand machinations,
Right.
Machiavellian
Like, but if you
schemes.
explain it to me, I'll understand that it's
Yeah,
just more like when you say the names, I'm like,
yeah.
oh, okay,
Toreador are the art obsessed ones. They're the ones closest to being.
gotcha.
They're the vampires closest to being human.
Okay.
And they maintain their guise of humanity through their connection to art and
Yeah,
culture. A lot of other vampires think it's all an act and like how still human they are is
gotcha.
all
Yeah,
bullshit and blah blah blah. But but like our ST, which is storyteller or your GM equivalent, shared
sure.
like images of all the primogens, and the one who I saw the image before I connected the name because I saw the pictures, so I got the pictures, and then like we're playing the game and like okay yeah Freya's doing this and Freya's doing that, and then like I look over I'm like wait oh Freya's the redhead. Now let's hear her out. Like I just like, immediately like she's supposed
Now,
to be this
yes,
like evil character and like she's I
and
actually
to be
have a
clear,
plot right now to let her seduce me, basically, so that like I could get more information. I'm like, look, we know what this is. You're trying to take over the knights, and I don't care if you take over the knights. I'm just trying to stop this other thing. So like, you can use me if you want, and like a whole plot is all because I have a weakness.
yeah. And to be clear to the chat, I have written my own lore for a lot of these characters. When I borrow specific themes, like this is not supposed to be a Trix XP. I liked her costume, and I said I'm going to use that costume and even then I modified it a little more because Triss, as far as I understand it, does not wear Rita Repulsa shoulders on her armor in the game.
Her one great failing.
Yeah. Uh, Anyway, I think we're coming down to like because I no there's still a few more
Well,
of just like the
Delmaris Castedes, right? So this is your
yeah that's my Tolkien pronunciations aside, I do have like a lot of people I think have this book. It's somewhere over there because it's $2 in Amazon and it's on a lot of people's like recommendations. It's like how to it's Tolkien's dictionary. You can basically look up English words and then
I
it
have named Menya character after Tolkien's like Elder Dictionary. So
it's a little red book, like not to be confused with the other little red books. This one has uh, Elvish in it as compared to the other red books, uh, which makes it cooler.
yeah.
Anyway, and so like now we're getting into why I really go to the Met. I started specifically for this project. I started looking through catalogs of these Italian Renaissance paintings since I had this idea when the Stone Mage, like when I was making the Stone Mage as like the main hero for my army last summer. I wanted all of his textiles to be taken from Renaissance art, and so you see me zooming in, and it's like I like that almost greenish, like the green tinted cream. I like that saturated orange and such, and you just start to see it like populate in different color schemes. And I tried to make these custom textures and things. It's on my
Well,
painting document.
you've even
Yeah.
got mud in here on the robes here. Yeah.
That is also a part of like the Lord of the Rings style. Like you make it real. Like these, even though these are elves, um, they would get all of this. Like I wanted a believable amount of dirt rooting them in the places they walk, the adventures they go on. Like even when we get to the Dawn Riders, like they would get off their horses and there would be mud on like their riding boots to an extent because they would actually get off and walk around and stuff like that. I wanted to account for those details in some way to give people just like the all of these hooks for their imagination to imagine what they do. These aren't just game pieces. These are expressions of the world I'm building and presenting for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Even elves walk to battle. Yes, and sometimes walking there takes you through some really muddy places. It's not great. And it does contrast with like when I have all of these saturated reds and blues and whites on them, but then we get into all of the earth and moss, like the not this one, but the next one after that, when we talk about the scenery, it really serves to bring everything together. Now we're getting into some of the house colors. There are 4 sub-factions within my army, which I don't really have the capacity to talk about with all of the images in this
Yeah. Yeah.
presentation. Yeah, but one of them uses this green color, which I really appreciated. Took me a few times to get right, even on this model, which is why you can see some of the stitching is really just me not having painted over some of the brighter green well enough. Yeah, and not LRL. We fly on giant rocks into the Reel of Death to beat up some statues. But I get where he's coming from. Um, yeah.
I
Here
think
we
the
go.
realm of death to beat up statues.
Yes, yes. So one of my inspirations for the scenery, which I tried to replicate for a long time and failed. Like I tried this first with the Stormcast and didn't work out. But now I think I've nailed it here. So we have Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus was really uh, I have never played it. I have always seen art of it. I have some of the art books. When the remake came out, I like there's just some trailers and stuff where you can just freeze frame it in 1080p and just start taking color swatches and everything. Looking at the it almost looked it at first glance it looks Mesoamerican because it's the same I think latitude is the word. It's longitude and latitude. It's the,
Longe is long, latitude is
okay, the
lateral.
same longitude as like Central America, but like South Asia, Southeast Asia. like Cambodia, like all of the scenery from like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, etc., just baked into that game. And there's this ethos in Lord of the Rings when they were building the sets, especially in Fellowship of the Ring. There's this whole thing where just layers upon layers of civilization are built on top of each other. Like the realms of men and the outposts of the elves are built on the remnants of lost Numenor, which is kind of like their equivalent of Rome. And it's like you're building civilizations which have already endured for hundreds of years upon the bones of societies which just no longer exist. And all of this stuff is out in the open and just being eroded over time and just kind of like slowly but surely being lost to history. And I like this idea, especially for how the setting is built for the mortal realms. You have stuff even in the realm of Hysh, where it's like the elves might not have been the first people to make civilizations in certain hinterlands. So you can have all of this stuff, just layers of different civilization, create this more robust sense of setting. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
even in this picture from Fellowship of the Ring, they're standing next to a piece of a statue which is like dozens of feet tall. It probably belonged to something as tall as the Argonaths. You know, the two statues with the hands out of Isildur and Elendil, which have been there for hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years.
Hmm.
And I wanted to recreate that in the bases, which you can see highlighted on the Dawn Riders.
Yeah, this is really cool. I think you even pulled some colors down onto the bases from your
Yeah,
inspiration.
it's four different moss colored paints and like spattering the leaves and everything like that. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
what's the next one?
We got Dark Souls shields and Lord
Oh
of the
yeah,
Rings
this is
Sabot
just
blades.
like some smaller details, like just trying to write like I wanted to incorporate Dark Souls in some capacity because I really like how Dark Souls treats its more historical or at least toned down to costumes. Because you know it gets well into like Berserk style dark fantasy anime territory
Yeah,
as you get into
I
them.
too can't wait for Elden Ring.
Yes. Well, I'll buy it. I'll play it.
Oh,
Um,
my body is
it'll
ready.
it'll take me longer than anyone else because I'm not particularly good at those types of games, but I won't stop me. I'll play it.
It's worth experiencing the worlds,
Oh,
the intricacies of them.
I've played all the Dark Souls games. I know it's just like
I
but we'll see.
Yeah, I hope they draw a little bit more Bloodborne than Dark Souls. Bloodborne has the for my money just the more satisfying combat. So
Sure. Yeah, yeah. And this was just like I tried to borrow again from Lord of the Rings to make the mithril weapons. Like I see this as almost an extension of like the pastiche that we have from
see, your anchoring
yeah.
point has been Lord of
Seems
the
to be Lord of the
Rings.
Rings.
Yeah,
Has task, yes, because that was where I think we got like low fantasy elves, right? And I think that was probably a little bit of it for me. Like if Lord of the Rings was more elves were more Italian flavored. And by that I mean like medieval Renaissance Italy, not like
yeah,
hey,
yeah, yeah. Not Jersey, but like
right. And here's just a quick summary of like all of the color tests I did last year waiting for the kits.
Mhm.
Like we have the skin tones, we have like this weird kit bash I made. And then we have like the figure where you can clearly see it's like, all right, I think I know what I'm doing. No, that doesn't work. All right, here we go. This is what I want to do. What would a Jersey army look like and what faction would it be? Um, it would probably be Necromunda. It would probably be a Sopranos or Italian mafioso themed Necromunda gang. Um, I maybe House Orlok. That's the best I got. And then just paint them like paisans. Uh, yeah. All right. So we have some of the Cathalar stuff here.
So you're of Italian descent, so you can say this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't put the accent on. I'm a little too tired for that.
Yeah,
And it's unnecessary. We're talking about elves here. If we
yeah.
wanted to talk about um, my games at Summer Slaughter, we'd be like, oh, this game 3, I don't know what the fuck I'm telling you. All right, I did it. I did it, everybody.
Yeah,
We can go home
yeah,
now.
yeah. We're good.
Um, So I was lucky enough at Summer Slaughter to have some of my army to professionally photographed. If you zoom in a little bit, well, it doesn't need to be zoomed in, but like you can like see the stuff on the Cathalar. I built her a big scenic base because I wanted to. Character like hers normally has like a reserved, like it's just her costume. Like so I built up her base. You can see a little bit of like her using the environment around her.
Hmm. You see the smoke
Like
actually
this,
bubbling up, coming
yeah,
up.
that's actually the Cathalar bit, and there's a little skeleton in the cairn, and he's just holding like this basin, and she's using the environment, literally like using the weight of ages of different like who knows how long that skeleton and that bowl have been there. She probably doesn't know either, but she's going to make use of the tools at her disposal, and
Right.
she's using the place of power, as it were,
Yeah.
to enhance her own strength. Um, it elevates the figure above the rest of the troops to compensate for her kind of reserved costume. Um, it gives us a little bit of a wider look into the world that I'm kind of creating with the bases. And it's a cool OSL effect, which will get me points for judges. Uh,
Right.
uh, yeah, and there's like some work in progress photos that we could just like quickly go through, and like the art that I had commissioned of her, and I kind of like the hair on the yeah. This is by a friend of mine, Polina. You can see here like it gets a very good
Sorry.
yeah, and this was where I wear cut resistant gloves and started to shave away the veil on the face.
Yeah. Oh, so you,
Yeah.
you actually like shaved down the veil because it would have been all over there on the model.
Yes, yeah, I had to, and then I filled it in with plastic putty. The head, the face is from the Dark Elf Hydra crew, one of the Beastmasters,
Hmm.
and then I took tree revenant bangs, put those on, and the last photo of the work in progress. Dan, I think he's like Master of Wyvern Husbandry on Twitter. The sculpting guy taught me over the phone how to sculpt that hair, and there was a giant gap there, and I think I did a pretty good job.
No, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Boom.
Um,
Oh, power
yep.
pose. Pure animu.
Absolutely.
Pure animu. Um,
Here we go with Avalanor.
I love
Do you
this.
have any questions about Avalanor? Because people always are like, I don't even know where to start. Um, but yeah, I kind of just wanted to do something based vaguely on Chinese pottery, and it got way out of control. And it ended up looking fantastic. That was kind of it.
Like you didn't. There was. Yeah. No.
He's a character he's a named character. For not only is he a named character, but like he's a force of nature. It's like he's like a Vorlon from Babylon 5. He doesn't really need much tinkering with in terms of fitting his narrative into my army. He's a spirit. It's a mountain spirit. It's the mountain spirit. Uh, and I just like I'm gonna paint the tabards red to make it match with my stuff.
That was it. That was it. You got the. Yeah. This.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it needs no other explanation really.
I
Not
actually
like
I love the contrast between the face and the mountain, essentially the mountain
Mhm.
itself. It practically frames everything and then drives your eye down because it
Yeah,
pulls you in and then it just drives like it's the mountain is just this unshifting, unwavering, like even like the sort of the depth,
yeah.
the intensity of the
It
color.
was it was even in the army book, it's this red crystal, whatever it's supposed to be. And I was like, I really like that color. I'm gonna try and replicate that to an extent.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I'm also gonna do green because I like the green terracotta from the Terracotta Warriors. And everything else just kind of fell into place.
Yeah.
And then I made sure the green is on the hammers too.
Mhm.
Uh, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, some aging going on. No, this is great.
Uh,
I love it, man. I love it. How the
yeah.
hell did you do
I
the purple and blue?
the purple and blue. You mean the clouds on the
Yeah,
armor?
how the fuck did you
Uh,
do this?
so it kind of like just happened on its own. It got away from me. Like, there was this picture on Facebook of how to do like a pearlescent effect. Someone was painting their eidolon, and it's like 6 or 8 panels. Like the images, they're very low res, but like the text is clear. It's like do do some pink, do some blue, go back in with some white, do a dark blue like a Dracoff Nightshade in the deepest recesses, go over it with gloss varnish, and you're done. And I was like, maybe I could tinker with that a little bit. And it got out of control, to the point where I had to stop for like most of December. And it's like I can't. And I asked for some feedback from like my coach and other people. It's like, Marty, this looks great. Keep going. I hate to tell you this, but you just got to finish it. It'll look great when it's done. And
Yeah.
like by the middle of February, it was finally, yeah. So the clouds are sculpted. That's all sculpted into the armor. Like all of the temple stuff, like the wind and the earth temple, they have like this very Chinese sort of cloud pattern sculpted into their armor. I just made sure that every cloud was highlighted to a degree. Every
Well,
one.
this is where the watercolor really, the feel of it
Yes.
is
And that's what Chinese pottery is. It's a lot of watercolor paint over ceramic. Then they shellac it. Then they
and
then
they
they
do
bake it again.
yep, they do it again.
Um,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Um,
Here we go.
yeah.
I like that you got the lens flare in here. Like little
That
bay
was like when
action
I just
shot.
started playing with different images, like when I was preparing to show off all of this last week. Remember, I started like 4 days, 3 days. I just really just started digging into filters and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and no one, and these pictures hide the fact that it's only an 18-inch by 18-inch display board, because I was, oh yeah, this display board is super tiny. It's almost too small,
Yeah. There you
and
go.
I could really hide that. This was sitting over here. It was sitting where that green foam board is. You can
You
actually,
snipped the extra tethers on the bow.
yes, I did, because I thought they were dumb and they hide the faces. So I just used, for the Sentinels. It's like they switch to the other knobs on there for alternate firing positions. That's bullshit. That's not actually like real at all. It's kind of just bad design. But I wanted to keep a little bit of it anyway,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like how it ended up being. And
No.
so you have this nice frame picture of the Cathalar, like ordering all of the archers to fire. I wanted this thing with the characters where it's like they all have their own mood. They all have their own a little bit of a palette that's unique to themselves,
Uh-huh.
but still can be tied back to the rest of the army.
Well, your red color basically. Your this
Yes, the
reaches like
crimson.
the purple to me, but or fuchsia,
Yes.
magenta or whatever it is.
I call it crimson because Vince calls it crimson because it was from his Crimson Armor tutorial.
Yeah.
You can call it whatever you want. It's and a lot of people are like just it's purple or whatever. Um,
I
it's
mean, we
it's
all
yeah,
even what I'm seeing right now is going to be different from
yeah,
what our eyes are weird.
sure.
Um. So
And the point being is that it's like she's wearing a little bit of it, even though she has this turquoise and gold sort of
right,
robe
right.
that no one else has.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you got Rogue here, showing up, showing out
Yes, the lore seeker
with
with
the red hair and the
yeah,
one
yeah,
like
yes,
Rogue.
I wanted to throw that in there as like a that happens with certain characters in fiction, and it was like, no, I'm going to do that with her too. I actually based her hair on the Hex Girls from Scooby Doo, which
Right.
did not work out, which did not work out very well because that's cell shading, and cell shading does not apply well to miniature painting.
Yeah. There you go.
Uh, yeah, that's her next to the Dawn Riders, or at least some of them. Uh,
And
yeah,
here we go.
I know we're going through these pretty quickly now, but like it was mainly like once I just knew what I was going to do for all of these miniatures, it really just started to come together very well.
Yeah.
These are some of the spearmen. Some of them have swan imagery, like again Lord of the Rings, but this is also from a video game that I kind of took it from. This is a good example of very subtle kit bashing, because this is the spearman unit champion. I gave him a different head for Revenant head. And instead of a sword, I gave him a spearman's pike. Just changed it how it's held in both hands. Put a Phoenix Guard halberd on top, and that banner is from Witch Elves,
Hmm.
and I painted it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Nice little
it's
freehand. Nice little freehand here with the sort of like almost filigree like look.
yeah. You can see the little bit of a swan on the one side, and you can see
Yeah.
the Celtic style lacing on the other.
Yeah. Get
Uh,
wrecked some chaos warrior here. Um.
Where?
There's a Chaos Warrior helmet right here.
Oh yes, I did put that on his base. Yes, I found some old chaos bits and stuff.
This
Yeah,
is
there's
gorgeous though. The Arch Regent or whatever it is.
the Lord Regent.
Lord
Yeah.
Regent. Sorry. This is
Um,
gorgeous.
Another example of less is more. I wanted a little bit of that dragon imagery, like the true like Targaryen style, like um with I really like the aesthetic of it's not in the show, it's all in the books and the art of this Anglo-Saxon sort of approach to um having like the dragon faction like design built into the crowns and the parade armor, and I wanted a little bit of that to be in the regent costume. So I found the old dragon prince head, and I gave him a lance from the dragon kit. So it's a little bit evocative of that old high elf aesthetic meets the new stuff.
Yeah.
That's bait. That's the only real conversion on this model.
Yeah, but like you said, like less is more here. I mean, it
Yeah.
sells it.
Um,
Here we go.
Hades says, question. I don't know if I want to put them in miniature color schemes because they're all named. Um, I would, if I was going to do Miari's purifiers, I would. I don't like the idea of 4 different models having 4 different color schemes because that's my Star Trek brain. I like diversity, but we're all wearing the same T-shirt. But that's just my opinion. So I would have them maybe all have a different secondary color. They all have the same armor color, but then they have different pants or capes or different colored bags. But like their primary armor color, I think, should be the same across all of them. How's that sound?
I love that Ossiarch Bone Reapers cheat with that. They really do get
Yes.
to be uniform, like
Yes.
because they would be sculpted. Like you're gonna have like diversity with your heroes, but like the more
They
type.
are bone terminators.
Yeah,
They are truly bone terminators.
yeah. I think I kind of skipped
Uh,
your sword masters here, but here's the zoomed out picture with Avalon.
no, yeah. This is yeah. We've seen them a few times. I wanted to do the classic sort of Grey Knight style.
Come at me, bro.
Um, no, the blue mirror sword, the blue power weapon effect,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and it stands out so much more. Like Vince actually said, I asked him as like to critique my stuff. It's like, why didn't you do this across your entire army? It looks so much better. And it's like because it does look better. It stands out like that.
Yeah.
Um, and it was almost a screw you to the rules writers, because as we know, sword masters, they have sun metal weapons, but do not have the sun metal weapons ability.
Yeah. So you made their
Hmm.
weapons look even more impressive than regular
Yes,
sun weapons. I respect
yes,
it. I respect the hustle.
yeah.
So we got another image here of your Dawn Striders.
Yes. This was from the day when I showed up all of the pictures and everything. Um, and I think we can go to the next one where it was like kind of like the Pisto unit, which is oddly the only unit which doesn't have the chrome paint on it yet. There we go.
These ones.
This was the Kit Bash Galore. I always have one of these, my Ultra Indulgent unit. Remember my Blood Knights? This was their version of the Blood Knights, where it's like, let's take everything
Yeah, yeah.
and make it. Um, so we have old Island of Blood stuff. We have Phoenix Guard stuff. We have Dark Riders. We have Dragon Princes. We have, oh God, what else is there?
Isn't this a Wood
Blood
Elf
Bowl.
Wild Rider head back here? Or whatever it is?
No, that's a Blood Bowl. Yeah,
Blood
Wood Elf Blood Bowl team.
I was close.
Uh,
I was close. Wild Riders, Wood Elves.
yeah.
Come on. I was close.
No, yeah, you were pretty close. And then on the far right we have the Dark Eldar Scourges, which is the box to 5 with the wings. I put the Dawn Rider head crest on her helmet just to make it look a little extra, like in keeping with the army. And you see how much of the blue, like from the Swan. These are supposed to be like Swan Knights.
Mhm.
How much of that blue shows through on the whole sort of ensemble. And you can see on the bottom left, talk about cultural inheritance. There's a Bretonia helmet.
Yeah, I was about to ask, is that a Bretonian helmet there?
Yes, it is.
Uh, nice
Who
little
knows
mount.
how many ages that relic of a lost age has been there? And it doesn't even have to be, oh, it's actually Bretonia. Could be like a knights fought in that spot who happen to look like Bretonians.
Right. Yeah, they found Bretonian
Yeah.
armor, and then here's
Or
the
no, they just their own cultural sort of inherent art design led to them making similar decisions.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now
Here's
here
the
we have.
full thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my undead board. I still have to make a new one for Du Bois in Armies on Parade, which will be like an Italian Rivendell. Um, it's going to be intimidating. It is. I'm sorry. It is intimidating. It's going to be a challenge, but I'm up for it.
I like we found your anchor. It was
Hmm.
Italian Lord of the Rings.
Yes. If Rivendell was in Tuscany, take me there. Here's the Lore Master, the only one I don't have art for yet. She was hard to photograph because she doesn't really have a golden angle, but I think everything's pretty well presented
Yeah.
here.
Good weathering on
Yeah,
the rock she's standing on too.
thank you. A lot of them use the same four moss colors, which can all be found in my. I have an ongoing sort of packet with all my color schemes and everything, like recipes and stuff that people can just use. This is art
Where would they
of my
get
Lord.
that? Where would they get your
Oh,
packet?
in my Google Drive, if people wanted to get that, it is available, I think, in the Lumineth Reddit Discord in like the reference tab. But I could, if anyone just wants it, just message me. I'll link it to them.
You could give me if could you give me the link and I could share it in
Sure.
the notes on this video.
Yeah,
Okay,
after the
cool.
broadcast, we'll do that. Yeah.
Right on, right on.
Here is some art of the Lord Regent. My mother liked this art so much, she had it made into a needlepoint canvas. She's going to start stitching it as like a
That's
wall thing.
that's
Like she
fantastic.
made this.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your family's
Uh,
adorable, Martin.
Thank you. They have been endorsed by many podcasts now.
The most endorsed family of any Warhammer
Warhammer
pod.
clan.
Yeah,
Yes, the
figured.
Orlando clan.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Not sure what else is left in here because I think we kind of went through a lot of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um, but like I think it's clear now that it's like I had this idea of, and there's a close up of the model. And there's art of the Stone Mage, which did not make it into the final army, but he is useful yeah, that's everything.
Yeah. Cool.
Um,
Just gonna.
yeah, I guess my anchor point, yeah, was after effect, like the Lord of the Rings and Italian art history or European art history,
Right. Yeah.
and bringing in those concepts and just making it my own. Because this is truly uh, an army which is quintessential to my artistic tastes while being true to the spirit of what Warhammer lore tries to be.
Mhm. I mean, it really was by nature putting your imprint on the mortal realms. Like it was
Yeah.
what your sensibilities, what inspires you. Even like that sort of. I mean, you said this was the army. This was it, right? So
Yes. Oh, and I'm still going to be adding to it. I haven't painted Teclis yet. I have to paint Teclis at some point.
yeah.
And when they add more, like when they add to this, when they expand it more, unless they heavily retcon stuff, which is infringing upon, or change forces me to change the rules of my own army's stuff, which I doubt. Uh, like by rules, I mean like the world rules. Like my army exists in this part of Zytrek, and they do this, and this is how they interact with people. I don't think that's going to change. It's going to be like, how do I take the new stuff that comes out and adapt it to the world I have created for myself within Warhammer's setting?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. I mean, we went through the whole army. We had a couple of sides besides.
Yeah.
Is there any advice, any great truth you've learned through the lens
Yeah.
of art you'd like to share with anyone?
I would say I would just hammer on the thing that I've been saying since the beginning. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. And when I say ask for feedback, get really detailed. Like,
Specific. Be specific.
Yes, be specific. People who are used to giving advice like that, like say master painters in our hobby, appreciate when you know your terminology. Like, I'm looking to improve my blending, not like, how do I make this look better? Because I've gotten that question on my Instagram a lot. Like they'll post a picture and it's like, how do I make this better? It's like, where do you think you're struggling? Try and be specific about don't be afraid to read. And by read I mean like art, consuming more inspiration. Um and know the different and if that's a number two, 2A would be um know what's applicable to Warhammer in terms of inspiration and which is not. And like I didn't want to get into this too much because this could be its own show. We've been running for quite a while now. The thing where it's like inspiration, not a Stephen King novel may not be the most appropriate inspiration in terms of like trying to get blood from a stone as to create the heraldry and military sort of dress code for a faction in Warhammer. Does that make sense?
Disagree.
I'm
I
not.
know the point you're trying to make, but I have 1,000 ideas right now just on the Dark Tower alone.
That's fair.
No, I know what you're trying to say though. Like not
Right,
all inspiration is a one-to-one. Like you
right.
can't like it helps. I mean, in art there's actually a term for this which is like media.
Okay.
You want to draw from like media initially and then you can broaden out from there. It's
Yeah,
real.
like I will be taking notes. Like I have to go. I watched The Green Knight last night, and I really appreciated the art design. And I'm going to have to go rewatch it and try and understand what I like about it, and maybe apply it not to my Warhammer stuff, but to like might fit my original fiction a little better, and understanding how it might be applicable,
Mm-hmm.
even though right now it doesn't seem like it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the rhetoric where it's like, and me just how my brain works. How does like the Mountain of Madness or whatever that book that is the movie is called In the Mouth of Madness or The Mountain of Madness?
Mouth
That what?
in the mouth of madness.
In the Mouth of Madness. How do I get a color scheme, like just general ballpark from that? And you might be able to answer that question um, off the bat. I do not. And I would just use the advice where it's like, when you're starting,
So
if you want to like improve the narrative flavor of the army that like is in front of you, the new project that's in front of you, look for like media if you're looking externally for inspiration.
yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
easy to visual media is easy to help. You can translate visual
Spe-
media. Yeah. Okay. Specific
specific
question.
question: what color do you use for a blonde? Um, Usually, my answer is I look for a Vince video and I use that because they're great. Um, and they're usually helpful. Um, I forget what he says in the video, and I can just spitball here because it's like he made a video for blonde hair. I think you do Seraphim Sepia all over, and then you get like an ochre, a brown, and an ivory, and you just work with these three colors the entire time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about color theory. And I've been asking several times on Twitter that the new Citadel Masterclass teaches color theory, because then it's like any ochre, what color? Light ochre, Kokum copper, doesn't matter. It looks like this. If you have a paint that kind of looks like this, you've picked the right paint.
Well, I mean
If,
that's it's not conducive to their selling you a system to sell you
correct,
paints, and that's why they don't do
correct.
it.
But and that's why the Masterclass is a good place for it, because that's like their next step, the more advanced. We can be a little different. Yeah. So brown hair it is. Now don't be afraid to try new stuff. There's another one. General advice: don't be afraid to try new stuff. To talk about in closing the stuff I'm working on right now. So I got back on the skeleton train. I tried object source lighting. I
Welcome
tried
back
mood lighting.
aboard. It's a lifetime
Uh,
pass. Once you're down with the skeleton life, you're
uh,
always welcome back on the train.
and I tried a sunset light on the armor, which you can kind of see. Like you can see a noticeable more orange, like on the one shoulder and torso.
Yeah, yeah.
It
On
doesn't.
this half.
It's not super strong. And like I did another glow down here. It didn't work out. I'm gonna build another skeleton tomorrow and prime and paint that. Um, and just until I get it right. And hopefully by next week, I have a coaching session with Aaron next week. Um, we'll talk through what I want to do for that, do like another test or two, and then paint the Warcry warband. And yes, it's a very complex technique, which is very hard to photograph and ask for feedback on, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want to try it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the three things: know how to ask for feedback and ask for it often. If you want to look for inspiration outside of Warhammer books, look for like media first. Then, if you really want to get into it, you can get in your Stephen King novels. And number three, paint boldly.
Yeah. Yeah. Never be afraid.
Yeah. Mhm.
See, look at me. I put the one color on the Vargeist, and then I'm gonna put
Yeah.
the other color, and once I get it blocked, I'll refine it down. And
I really want to if you do another paint stream, I have this method, and Vince has it too, where it's like people who are not confident about their hobby have shaky hands, or
oh, I don't care. That's
yeah,
that's my
yeah,
superpower.
or don't care. It's a foolproof method of getting your army better, like just better painted, and the smallest brush you use, other than rattle can, is the size 4. You see the size of that paintbrush?
Yeah.
See the size of that brush? This is the smallest brush we're using.
Uh-huh.
Does that sound appeasing? Does that sound
I
appetizing?
I think so. I think I've got a 4 here. I've got an 8.
That's effectively fine, but
I've got a
the
4 here.
four
No,
is
no, there's no
yeah.
4.
What if I told you you could paint an army really well, not going with any smaller of a brush than this?
I mean,
Any
yeah. I mean,
And like that's the point. It's like we're talking about eliminating brush control as a gap,
concept.
like a yeah, as a skill gatekeeping thing.
Huh.
Like we want
Well, because I
are
do
we
have my right hand is fucked. It's just the older I get, it's the worse
had
it is. I broke it when
that's
I was in my 20s, and it was the worst type of break you can basically have for a hand and recover from without it being totally mangled, which is
I
my metacarpals. Like I actually
mhm,
broke and dislocated them. The force to be able to do this, your wrist is supposed to break before you do what I did
right.
in my hand.
I I'm sorry to hear that. But the method accounts for that.
Yeah,
It really does.
yeah.
Um,
I would
it
call you
uses
a madman.
It uses colored primer or just airbrushing, but really colored primer because people who want to use this method don't need an airbrush. It uses colored primer, dry brushing, and applying contrast paint with big brushes to cheat your way to having um, miniatures painted to that tabletop standard. But they're going to look a little better than tabletop standard anyway, and it's very quick.
Cool.
Um, so if you ever want your Bone Reapers to like look better without trying, I have the method for you.
Yeah, no, I love this. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, let's cheat to win. Let's go.
All
Um,
right.
all right,
Yeah.
man. No, anything you want to put on blast or shout out to?
Yeah. A big thank you to if you've made it this far in the VOD, Sean Feathered and Jarrett Nyman for running a wonderful summer slaughter. Um, uh, I guess my Twitter, the CV Consigliere, or the Wandering Prince Instagram, if you want to follow my ongoing hobby projects. Uh, I've shilled for Vince enough in this episode. Uh, you know who I'm talking about. Go watch his stuff.
You should go
And
watch. You should go watch the episode on psychographic profiles specifically. I hear
yes.
it's got a really awesome guest on it. It's really good. It's the
Mhm.
best episode of Warhammer Weekly to date.
Absolutely. Uh, and it's also the first one that comes up when you search for it right now until next Wednesday.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it would be very easy to find.
yeah.
No, I did find that very insightful. It was I was name dropped more often than I think on any other show where I was not present, which I found amusing. Um, and I appreciate that I'm on everyone's minds for some reason.
Well, in my case, it's a recency bias because I knew I had the show coming up with you, and I talked to
Yeah.
Chad Gang, and I don't know why the rest of them were like talking about you as much, but
Probably because I'm always in the one of the group chats
yeah,
and just not even talking about elves, just like different stuff. And but no, it was a very insightful show.
yeah.
Lumineth is a little hard for me. I know I don't want this to be a uh this own. I mean, it's worthy of its own talking point, as we talked about on elf episodes before. I will play elves because I like elves and I want to win with them, but it is such a Timmy army. Yeah, Timmy's the word, because it's like it asks you to do so many combos even on one scroll.
That's Johnny. That's Johnny. Johnny is combos. Timmy is like
Oh,
big stupid crap, quote unquote.
oh, okay.
Like,
I thought it was the other way around.
you got to go watch it again now. You got to watch the whole
I know.
thing. You failed the
I will
test. You got to go
tomorrow.
back. So
Absolutely.
so this is Rantcast. The last sort of there's the digital soapbox or anything, any final rant you want to get off your chest, anything related to Warhammer or not. It doesn't need to be related to Warhammer. Is the final
Yeah.
soapbox.
Um, no, there's just one thing I didn't really get to mention. I had a little bit of a note thing here. Um, it was really nice to be able to work on all of this stuff. I wish I could have made a movie. I think this probably would have been better as like a show or a movie than a collection of miniatures, because I walked into it thinking it was supposed to be a movie, and I created all of these characters with kind of like a backstory, which informed their costumes and stuff. And it was really a really fun opportunity to work on it. And now that it's done, um, I look forward to working on, thankfully, smaller projects.
18 months on one project. 18
Yes,
loving but also painstaking months.
yes, and it wasn't constant; it was on and off. But still, it's like I now have to paint less elves. Going to paint more in the future, but make a movie then? No, because it'll be bad. I'd rather keep making stuff I'm good at, even if I'm trying new things while doing it.
Yeah.
Or Games Workshop, your budget department or whatever, find me an EP, a director of photography, and a casting director, and then we'll talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, just have a bunch of money to hand me, and then I might consider making a movie, right? Um,
And then I'll maybe talk to people.
yeah, there you go.
Uh huh.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I
That
mean,
was about it.
yeah. All right. Cool. You did the blast, final soapbox. That's it. There is actually a weird loose structure to Rantcast.
Hmm.
It's called the most dangerous intro. Like it's got like names for these little segments. I just try to keep it freeform and fun. But hey, chat gang, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry I was a little less animate than I usually am. I do apologize for that. It's been a
I'm also very good at keeping us on track.
heck of a summer. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I blame Martin. I was gonna blame
That
my
no, it's
schedule and work, but no, it was totally his fault for keeping me on track. Um,
yeah.
I'm glad you caught this one too. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Martin, you're one of the best among us. So
Thank you very much.
thank you for coming on here. Thank you for sharing your process and hopefully some inspiration for other folks. I mean, even people look up to an artist like you. Like for me, hearing that you're still learning is I think the
Hmm.
most encouraging thing to anybody is nobody's ever really arrived. We're only ever chasing, right? Like you're
Yeah.
never ever there. You you keep chasing, you keep trying, and as long as you keep that open mind, you keep trying to progress, you have to be specific. I mean, it's really important in anything in life. Criticism, aspirations, goals, you got to make it specific. And then, I mean, you had specific goals. You had these things that you desired. Heck, you couldn't even name what you were trying to do for a little bit, and then you're like, oh no, I was really doing that. But there was a
Yeah.
specific thing in mind. So yeah, be specific, everybody. You know, be compassionate for yourself. You know, obviously don't keep that humility
Yeah.
about you and know that you can learn. Be fearless, and you know, maybe I'll take some of this advice myself, and I'll have a Soulblight Gravelords army and a completed range of Ossiarch Bone Reapers. I've got an army, but I have a range I need to complete. This is a different task. This is
Yes. And I believe in you, Meph. I
yeah.
think you can do it.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, chat gang, you're the show within the show. You're the reason I do this thing. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Be excellent to yourselves. Be excellent to each other. And remember, drink your milk, pay your taxes. I'll see you next time.